Well, hello and welcome to another amazing guest podcast interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and boy, am I rusty. I actually don't know. Let's see. It's been so you guys, some of you know, longtime listeners know because I talk about it occasionally, but the way I do my recordings here on the podcast is I batch them. So we just record one day a month. And I do usually about 6 interviews in a day. And that gives us the 4 that we need for a month plus 2 extra for our runway, because there are times that things happen. And boy, have things been happening. So I'm gonna share with you guys real quick. I'm gonna steal from my guest's time just for a moment, because I haven't really talked about what's going on in my life. And many of you know that I was married, got divorced, got married again. I have 3 grown children in their 20s, and all girls. And then I've got a second, I call them batch 2. I've got the little ones, 8, 6, 2, and newborn. So
Yay!
a lot has been going, a lot has been going on here. But what's crazy is that my 3 daughters all got married from August 3rd to November 6th. And in between there, we stuck in having a baby. So I acquired 4 sons, 3 son-in-laws and 1 son in a matter of 3 months and 3 days. So it's been an absolute whirlwind here in the Rosenblum Amsel household. And needless to say, I haven't recorded a podcast interview in the last couple of months because of all of this that's going on. So I'm jumping back in the seat here, and hopefully it's getting like getting back on a bicycle, and I can just take off and ride. But I wanted to share these blessings with you, because we're just post Thanksgiving here as we record this. When you guys listen to it, Thanksgiving will be a long time in the rearview mirror. But this conversation is happening on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving, and I just want to take this moment. I have a public platform here. I get an opportunity to share, and I am so grateful for God and what he has showered upon our family to be blessed with being able to make 3 weddings, have 3 amazing son-in-laws come into our lives, have a beautiful, healthy baby boy, and everyone else, just continuing to be healthy and be making really positive moves in their lives in our family. And I know that there's a lot going on in the world to be upset about and be sad about. And I'm very, very in tune with what's going on in Israel. I don't want to go down on a tangent with that, but it just allows me to color the colors a little bit brighter on how thankful we are for not just what we have, but the safety that we have and the ability to be able to survive and thrive, even in difficult times when, the world is reminding us that you cannot take safety for granted. You cannot take your health for granted. You can't take these things for granted. So I just want to say thank you to God, and also thank you to our listeners for being here, consuming our stuff, because we really have amazing guests that come on and wonderful things to share with you. And if you're going through a tough time, just know we've all gone through tough times, and there is a bright future ahead of you. I've gone through my share of challenges. I mentioned that I went through a divorce. That was a very dark time in my life. And if you had told me that, that was in 06 to 08 is when I was going through that. So like 17 years ago, if you had told me that in 15 years, I'm going to be marrying off all 3 of my kids in a 3-month period, or having a 4th child in batch 2, which is 7 kids if you're counting. If you had told me that, I wouldn't have believed you. So I'm going to speak into your life right now. If you're going through a challenge, and just tell you, when you are 5, 10, 15 years from now, you're going to look back, and whatever challenge you're going through will be a blessing in disguise. That is always how it works. The God and the universe are always setting you up for your next success, for your next enjoyment, for your next happiness. So when you're in this moment of grief, challenge, sadness, whatever is going on in your life, just know that it is clearing the way for the next level of happiness, enjoyment, success for you. Now, let's jump in and invite our guest into a conversation. So our guest today is Charley Mann. Charley is a second time guest here on the podcast. We've had him here once before. I'm sure my team already pulled up what the episode number was that he was on, but I don't have it in front of me. So I'm going to look it up and we'll find it for you as I bring him on. But Charley is very interesting because he was, on Ben Glass's team, and we had a great conversation around that. For those of you who don't know, Ben Glass, an amazing individual, built a nice sized law firm, wrote a book or two. I don't remember if it's one or two. And he also works with law firm owners and helps them in their growth. And then Charley decided to do something interesting, and that is to go out on his own, start his own business, and help law firm owners in his own way with his own secret sauce. And I don't know what precipitated the move, and maybe we dive into a little bit of that conversation today, Charley. But I pulled up that episode, by the way. So it's Learn How to Embrace Confidence and Profit with Charley Mann, episode 306. You can find that at profitwithlaw.com/306. And we will also link that up in the show notes. Show notes are always in the description of the podcast episode, as well as on our website, profitwithlaw.com, which, by the way, our website has had a complete overhaul, and I love what my team has done with it. So go check it out at profitwithlaw.com. We have a YouTube channel now. We also made it a little bit easier for you to navigate and find how to do business with us, because that was kind of hidden before. So it's
Good
a little
choice.
bit easier. Yeah, a little bit easier for you to figure that out. So Charley's a coach and strategist, and for entrepreneurial law firm owners, he helps owners transform their law firms into wealth generation and lifestyle vehicles while growing as leaders along the way. Charley, I will give you an extra 10 minutes on those 32 minutes you promised me, because I just stole the limelight for a few minutes, just sharing what's going on in my life. And let's jump in and have a conversation with you and what's going on in yours. Went out on your own, and people can go listen to the previous episode to find out your backstory. But tell us a little bit about that decision of choosing to go out on your own, because there are people listening to this episode who are lawyers working for someone else, and they're sitting there trying to figure out, should I start my own law firm? And I know it's not the same thing, but it is the same thing, right? When you leave a paycheck to go and build your own thing, there's a lot of different motivators that might precipitate that. What were yours?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll dig into those in just a second, but first let me just tag an amen onto everything that you were saying earlier about all the blessings of the universe, blessings of God, all of it, and so much in your life. I am genuinely delighted to hear all of that. I'm so happy that I'm here adjacent to you sharing all of it, because that just infuses my day with joy, my week with joy, hearing all that. So I'm so happy for you, Moshe, truly.
Awesome.
So the big thing that precipitated it was some time ago, I made an agreement with myself regarding ownership. I've been an intrapreneur for a long time, right? And that's been an incredible journey. I learned more than I ever expected to. I didn't, before working with Ben, I didn't understand the idea of entrepreneurship. I barely understood the idea of intrapreneurship. And along the way, throughout that journey, there started to become an agreement with myself, a timeline agreement of, by a certain age, I needed to be an owner, because I want the responsibility of being an owner. I want the reward, but I also want the risk at the same time. I have a solid level of risk tolerance. And let's be honest, how do you create big wealth and impact in the world? Like really big wealth and impact in the world? Owning your own business is the number one way to do it. And I didn't want to shortcut anything. We all go through this life exactly one time, and we have these opportunities to take the risk, to go out on our own. And you talk, Moshe, about you can survive the worst moments of your life. You can survive opening a business, whether it succeeds or if it fails, you can go back and take another crack at it. And so I ultimately knew that success or failure, I had to step into the role of owning something. And the path that ultimately became available to me in order to hit that agreement that I made with myself was, all right, I have to start my own business. And so I knew I still wanted to work with law firm owners. I knew that I still wanted to be in the coaching space. And I really liked being in this very intimate, up close coaching role that I've held for the last few years, working one-on-one with law firm owners and working in mastermind groups with them. And there was some unique stuff that I wanted to be able to do, different types of conversations that I wanted to be able to have with firm owners, that when you are operating under someone else's brand, you want to respect that brand, right? You want to honor what they have put together. But as someone who has started to develop a voice, started to develop a reputation within the profession, there was that clarity of, okay, there are certain things I want to be able to say. And in order to say them exactly my way, I got to press go on my dream. And so between that agreement with myself of hitting that age of needing to press launch and wanting to be able to express myself in a unique way, pressed go on Law Firm Alchemy. And it's been, I mean, I guess by the time people listen to this, it'll be a little bit more than half a year, but it's been, as of recording this, the greatest 5 months I could ever possibly imagine, and then some.
Yeah, I love you sharing that, and really, one of the things when we really dig into it, because I have these conversations with law firm owners all the time, is like, you even know why you started your firm, because they lose sight of it, right? I start their firm, but now I'm 5 years in, I'm struggling to achieve a level of success that makes me happy, and when we start looking at it, the first things that they'll come up with is time and money, right? Like, oh, I wanted more time, I wanted time freedom, or I wanted more money, I wanted to have the unlimited earnings potential. But when we really look under the hood and we say, okay, why do you want more time, or why do you want more money? Like, what is that going to give you? What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
That is when we can start to uncover the impact that you just jumped right in and talked about, which is, I want to I want to impact people in a certain way, and I want to do it on a grander scale. One of the books that I give my clients when they join our elite program is I send them a package, and there's 3 books in there. And one of the books that I send is a book called Living Forward. It's by Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy. It's a really short book, but it takes a really long time to read because there's exercises in there that you need to do. You can't just read it. You have to actually do the exercises.
I like it.
And they talk in there about how, there's this thing called drift, where, when we're not controlling our lives and we're just going through the motions every day, we end up going into this drift. And if you think about drifting at sea, think about that word. You're kind of at the whim of where the waves carry you, where the tide carries you, and you have no control over where you go. So the premise of the book is basically to create a life plan looking at all the domains of life, which are your relationship domains, your earning domain, your business and employment, stuff like that, and to really figure out like which domains are important for you to focus on, and then really focus on them. If you want to have a fully enriched marriage, you can't just show up in the morning, wake up in the morning and say good morning to your spouse, go through your day, and at night say goodnight to your spouse and expect to be in a happy marriage. You have to put effort in. You have to be proactive in making sure that you're doing little things like complimenting them, going out of the way to do some of the work that they might have had to do, going on dates, things like that. So when we're going through the life without doing those things proactively, the relationship suffers. And one of the things that we really, one of the exercises in that book, this is why I brought it up. I went off on a tangent there. One of the things that he has us do in that book is to write your own eulogy. And that is a very powerful exercise. And if anybody who's listening to this has not done this yet, I invite you to do it, because it really makes you think about, what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to say about you when you cannot change it anymore?
Mm.
Right now, when you're living, I mean, you can make the biggest mistakes in the world, but you can also live past those. You can
Yeah.
create new stories. One of the things that our clients ask all the time is, "Oh my gosh, I got a negative review on Google. What do I do?" Right? Well, you could spend days and days
Yeah.
trying to get it removed, fight it, whatever, or you can just try to get 10 positive reviews behind it and nobody can see that negative review, or they really
That's
need to
right.
dig to find it, right? So you can layer positivity over anything negative and end up, a better person. Yeah, my divorce was a really dark time in my life, and I thought that that was going to define me and change who I was. People are going to look at me different, but
Mm.
I went and got a new relationship and started a new family, and like now you look at me, nobody looks and says, "Oh, he got divorced," right? That's just not what they
No,
look at in my life.
that's a
Not that there's
footnote.
anything wrong with divorce, by the way. I'm not like
Yeah.
there is a, there's a thing around it, but the reality is that you have to live your life, and if the two of you are not meant to be with each other, then you got to move past that too. But again, a tangent I don't want to go on. My point is you you understood that there's something, you have something, you have a purpose on this world,
Hmm.
impact, and you're not achieving the level of that you wanted in the role
Hmm.
you were in. So you're going to set your own path and you're going to do your own thing. And I invite our listeners to just use this as a moment to say, hey, why am I doing what I'm doing? And if
Hmm.
I'm coming up with the time and the money thing, I need to dig deeper and really figure out what my why is. I've had people on the other side of Zoom tell me that their why was they want to demonstrate to their kids what's possible
Mm.
for
I
a
love that.
minority female, lawyer to create. And here they are, they've created a multi-million-dollar law firm, and their kids can look at that and say, wow, if mom can do it, I can do it with whatever they're doing, right? That is a level of impact. Yeah, it's for her kids, but that's something that cannot be taught in any other way.
Right.
And she figured out that that was what was driving her, and that was why she wanted to be successful. There's other people who understand that impact is not just the clients you serve, it's the employees you have.
Hmm.
And so there's so much room for impact in the business that you have, and you really start thinking about why it is that you're doing what you're doing, because it'll breathe new life into everything that you do. It'll give you
Oh
that
yeah.
refresh. All right,
Oh yeah.
I've been doing a lot of talking and you're the guest, so we're going to turn the tables back to you, Charley. You've been working with some people, you've been working with them one-on-one.
Hmm.
I actually don't do a lot of one-on-one, because my experience with one-on-one was that my clients would think the coaching call was when the work was done, and it's really the work in between the
Mm.
calls, right? So
Hmm.
I found it difficult to get them to do that. But in a group setting, they kind of have to keep up with the pack. So that's why I do group coaching. I love that you're doing one-on-one, because I love working one-on-one with people. I just felt like I had a better impact in a group environment. But you're working with some law firm owners, um, and they've achieved some level of success, right?
Hmm.
What are you finding today being the biggest challenge for those firms that are, you know, between the million and 3 million mark of revenue? I know that up until 750, probably the biggest challenge is I got to find clients, right?
Absolutely. Always.
You figured that piece out, and now you've got clients coming in, you've got your marketing down, and you want to grow beyond yourself, right? What's the biggest challenge that happens in that space?
So this is what I love is like what I'm going to share here is going to be utterly not revolutionary, except for the few people who need to hear this message at this exact moment, right? And that's, I mean, let's be honest, Moshe, that's 90% of the work that we do is it's not completely reinventing the wheel. It's finding people who are ready for it, which by the way, marketing lesson in and of itself. But the big thing is boiled down to a single word: identity. how do you identify in this world? A lot of clients, when they come to me, what they're grappling with is they are currently a lawyer who happens to own a law firm. And we're working towards how do they, and they don't necessarily know how to articulate it. But I also like to say a lot of people, when they start to me, want to start with me, whether it's one-on-one or in the new program, the Genesis Mastermind program that I have, when they're starting with me, it's usually because they're at a point of transition. And that transition is sometimes conscious and sometimes it's subconscious, or sometimes it's misappropriated. It's okay, I think I'm in a sense of transition because I want more revenue in my firm, when in fact it's actually that they're dealing with the issue of, I don't want to go to trial anymore. I'm actually not excited by that at this point. And I think that revenue initially solves that problem, except they're actually tying themselves to generating the revenue as a trial lawyer instead of moving away from it. So coaching identity and saying, how do we move you from being a lawyer who owns a law firm to being an entrepreneur? How do we build your entrepreneurial skill set? And so this is where it also becomes a practical exercise of helping firm owners, because if you help them, and I know that you do this as well, when you help them build their skill set, their marketing skill set, their leadership skill set, and those are the first two that we really focus on, but then also figuring out how to be a better manager, sort of developer of systems, how to be a better financial officer for your firm. And, it's just enough information to get the job done, but go find professionals to really help you out in some of these spaces. When you start building that skill set, now you can drop into that identity in a deeper way. They're afraid of it at first because it seems like this gigantic pool of unknown information. And they don't want to dive into that because they're in the warm, comfortable waters of, I know what it's like to be a lawyer, and I'm okay running a firm where there's either cash in the bank or there's not a lot of cash in the bank. And if there's not a lot of cash in the bank, now I'll try and figure out how to solve that problem. An entrepreneur doesn't want that problem. An entrepreneur wants a business where cash in the bank is a reflection of all the other work that they are doing to have a humming organization. And they're not afraid of the balance sheet because it's one of their tools that they use in running a great business. So by working on building that skill set, and by working on, here's how you take actions as an entrepreneur and holding you accountable to those actions, now that identity starts to shift. And the number of clients that I have who work with me and within a year basically say, hey, Charley, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I don't think I want to be a lawyer anymore. Right? I'm like, I love that. I love that for you. I'm so excited. That's why we're doing this work. Maybe you didn't know that was why we were doing this work, but that is why we're doing this work. And so then we can have them own a business, and that's far more exciting.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, probably 90% of the law firms, and I just threw that number out there, by the way, that like 96% of statistics are made up. So I I think that by and large, the majority of law firm owners out there start their firm because they don't want to be a lawyer anymore. And they don't realize that. I mean, it's not really the real reason, right? They want that impact. They want that, more time, more money. But the way to get more time, more money is to not be a lawyer. The way to create more impact is to have a bunch of lawyers working for you, right? Because that's going to create impact on the team side. It's going to create impact on how many clients can I serve side, right? So all of the reasons, all of the domains of why I would start a firm, all point away from practicing law and being the business owner. So I think that deep down, everybody knows that, but they have a hard time actually walking the walk, right? So one thing that I do, and I've mentioned this on the podcast multiple times, I talk about this in webinars, but one of the things that I do to try to color it and help them to see the difference between the lawyer and the business owner is to talk about me. I'm not an attorney, and you can do this too, right? You're not an attorney either, correct?
Correct.
So we're not attorneys, which is what was my UVP, right? My unique value proposition, before, is that all the other coaches out there are attorneys who say, hey, I've been successful. Here's what I've done. But what they've done is not necessarily what you need to do. So now I can't say I'm the only one doing that because Charley is hanging out in here. But anyway, be that as it may, what I say is, in the state of Arizona, They have a sandbox project that
Mm.
allows a non-attorney to own a law firm.
Yeah.
So if I, Moshe Amsel, were to go to Arizona and apply to open a law firm in this sandbox project, and I were to be successful in being approved and start my law firm, who would be the first person I hire for my firm?
You'd hire a lawyer.
Exactly, because you can't have a law firm without a lawyer in it,
Yep.
right? So that is the point that I need to make to my clients and really need them to see and understand. Because when you
Yep.
start a law firm, if you understand that you have just started a business, and it could be any, you don't have to use a law firm as an example, use any business you want. I opened a UPS store, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
franchise. I bought into the franchise. What's the first thing I'm doing? Is I'm hiring the people for behind the counter.
Yep.
As the owner, the point of buying the UPS store wasn't so I can have a job behind the counter. It
It's
was
leverage. You want leverage.
exactly. It was to open a business where I have people doing the work and I am simply hiring them, overseeing them, and collecting the profit that the business gives off. Um, there's no other way to put it. I mean, basically, when you step into it as I'm the professional, and this really goes back to Michael Gerber's book, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to be the technician or do you want to be the business owner? And this is a really difficult concept to understand because
Yeah.
nobody's starting their law firm by hiring the attorney first. And
Correct.
that's why so many people are stuck in that initial 0 to 500,000 revenue range. It's not
It's yeah, they
because
can
you can't.
generate a great income by doing that, a really good income compared to like the national average, but they never see that perhaps they are building an elaborate trap for themselves that the longer they stay on the path of I'm trading my time for money, the harder it is, both from a momentum perspective and just sometimes from a practical resource allocation perspective, the harder it becomes to achieve escape velocity against that lifestyle. I mean, the number of law firm owners I've worked with where they come to me and they lay out the existing state of the union for the firm, and then I ask them perhaps about their personal lifestyle and how much money they're taking out of the practice. And it might be someone who says, "Oh yeah, my firm will do somewhere between 350 to 450, and oh by the way, I'm taking out 300 of it, and I kind of need to take out 300 of it. And oh, by the way, if you tell me I'm not allowed to take 300 out of it every single year, I'm just going to go to the next guy." My response to that is always, fine, go to the next guy. Because if you're not willing to jump into the entrepreneurial waters and see that you're spent. I mean, I literally had a guy basically say, look, I buy 12 or sorry, not 12. I buy 3 or 4 luxury watches every year. And I just really like doing that because I like flipping the watches after owning them for a year. Great. You do you, but that money, you could magnify that money that you're spending on watches to be able to afford a whole other class of luxury goods if you want, if you can just get past buying those luxury watches for a year and
Right.
create some
Take a
leverage in your
12 to
firm.
24-month hiatus of buying
My goodness.
watches, right?
Shouldn't be that hard. And yet sometimes it is, because there's also that connection where lawyers are put into a world where there's a lot of affluence and they see that affluence. And I am fully empathetic to that desire for, hey, some nice things. I would like some nice things. I've been working hard. I went to law school. The trade is now I get to have this particular lifestyle. I get to drive that car. I get to have this item. I get to go on these vacations. But you'd be surprised. And I mean, you wouldn't be surprised, but maybe some folks would be surprised of how quickly you can hit a certain ceiling and find that it's not really what you want. Because guess what, folks? There's always another level above you. You own a yacht, but you don't own a super yacht, right? There's always something else to get.
Yeah, I think that there's a bunch of things you just mentioned. I want to focus on the solo piece for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who builds a solo firm and that's all they want. Um, if you're able to produce a $300,000 income by getting your own clients, serving your own clients, and running your own firm, great. You can do
Yeah.
that. And but you also, if you're that kind of person, there's a law firm out there that's willing to pay you more than 300,000
That's
working
true.
for them. And all you've done is created a paycheck for yourself with all the risk and the headache of owning your own firm. You may as well go and work for somebody else and have no risk and headache and literally just collect a $500,000 or $700,000 income from them, because you're a rainmaker. You know how to get clients. You know how to do your work because you're serving those clients, and you know how to extract the money from the clients because you're billing them and collecting it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have all the traits that any law firm would want in an attorney. So you should be able to command a decent salary somewhere else, far better than you can produce yourself. So I'm not a naysayer on being a solo. I think that ultimately it's up to everyone what they want to build. But if all
100%.
you're
Yes.
planning to build is a solo practice, I think there's a better way to unlock your true value than owning your own firm. I'm not judging. I'm just throwing it out there. Really,
So I love that you make the statement, I'm not judging. That's something that I focus on in coaching, in the mastermind, et cetera, is like, we're not here to judge anyone's journey, but we are here to pick away at the truth to find out what they really want. And if they have been stunting their own growth by kind of lying to themselves about the difference between what they have and what they want, and that gap, which is the work to be done, they're not willing to cross that chasm, then yeah, maybe you do go and find the better gig in someone else's firm.
yeah. And there are people out there who I truly respect, like Carolyn Elephant, who's a big,
Mm.
solo cheerleader. And Allie Katz, who's big into estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
And her whole spiel is there's three types of business models that you can build as a law firm, and one of them is a solo practice. I I'm not saying there isn't a room for a solo practice business model. Um, I just think that if you are already going through all the risk and all the effort to build that for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more potential that you have if you would be simply look beyond that. So clearly, I'm a fan of hiring another attorney in your firm and not being the only attorney.
Yeah.
Clearly, that is how somebody gets from the 500, 750,000 revenue range to the 2, 3 million range, right? How do you, uh, uh, the question I was going to ask you is, how do you help your clients to get to the point where they're ready to hire that person? But I think the question before that is, what is the resistance that you're seeing in clients when it comes to hiring another attorney? I'm going to throw a few questions at you and just let you rip with it because they're all
Sweet.
kind of intertwined. And another question is do you hire support staff first, or do you hire the attorney first? Or do you hire both at the same time? And I'll just lay out what the question is for those who are listening are like, I don't understand. If you're the lawyer, one way that you can boost your own productivity is to just hire a bunch of assistants to help you
Mm-hmm.
to produce a better result for yourself. Another way to do that is to hire another attorney, let them do the legal work, fill their plate, and then start to surround them with support staff to make them more productive for you. So there's different ways to do this. I'm curious to know what direction are you advising your clients, and then what is the
Yeah,
resistance that they're having, and how are you helping them overcome that? And I think that's probably how we're going to wrap this episode up, is just going through
absolutely.
this last piece of conversation here.
Yeah, so I'll actually answer that last part first, and I'll just call it gentle bullying. It is, but really what it is, like when they start working with me, they say what their intentions are. And I love the word intention. It's one of the core values for myself. It's one of the core values for Law Firm Alchemy, is to operate with intention. So if they tell me what their intentions are, it's not Charlie bullying them. It's the intention that they've set in place, and me being the personification of that, reminding them, nudging them, saying, no, you came to me for a reason, because you said that you wanted this. And I would not be doing my job well if I let you just bounce from dream to dream to dream to dream to dream. That's not how this works. You came to me with a dream and you meant it. You said it for 2 months straight. You reiterated that dream. And now that the work seems a little bit hard, you think that you're going to stray from the path. No. You're not straying from the path. Let's get the work done. So gentle, loving bullying. As for the resistance, I love using the Beckert-Harris change equation. I recommend everyone look this up. This is like one of my fundamental tools for coaching. And what you have is on one side of the equation, you have R, which stands for resistance. Then on the other side of the equation, you have vision multiplied by dissatisfaction multiplied by first steps. Now, if we remember our middle school algebra, if any one of those numbers is a 0, that makes that side of the equation 0. And our goal is to get this side of the equation to be greater than resistance. So let's imagine, first off, someone who comes to me, they have to have a level of dissatisfaction with where they're at. I need them to have that. If they're not dissatisfied, they're not going to do anything. What they do if they're not dissatisfied and they're buying coaching, they're buying a coaching program, one-on-one, mastermind, any of it, they're just buying a luxury good. And that's fine. I'm not currently in the business of just being a luxury good. I'm at the point where my tolerance for people not doing the work is so low that I can't just be a luxury good. I have to work with people who are doing the work. And so I need them to be dissatisfied. Then oftentimes we're talking about the vision, and that's the gentle bullying, holding them accountable to the vision that they laid down. And then the strategist side is, can we give them some first steps to act on? So that way they're not just kind of clamoring around in the darkness, hoping to find the doorknob that opens for them. Instead, we can actually send them in the right direction. Now, that then goes to this idea of how do we then create leverage? If we know that our vision is to grow, we're dissatisfied with being the solo, we know that we want to grow this and create leverage, our vision is increasing, those first steps, how do we take those first steps here? Well, is it support or is it lawyer? Usually when I'm coaching someone, Moshe, what I'm going to look for is where is the path that they seem best suited for and naturally inclined to actually take action with an agreement that we are going to do both things. This is really important, right? We need to set that agreement in place early on. And that's when I talk with clients, I say, are we setting a to goal or are we setting a through goal? And I'll give you an example. Let's say we've decided I'm going to hire support staff, right? Which is not the one that we've been talking about, but it is where they're willing to go. We're going to hire a marketing assistant because they're not ready to do all the marketing work, but they need a marketing assistant to help them. We're going to hire a paralegal to get the legal work processed on the back end, et cetera. And we're going to hire those support staff. And I always tell them, okay, that has to be a through goal. As in, as we're doing that, we're not doing it just to end up there. We're doing that on our way to also hiring the attorney who will ultimately take over all or a portion of your legal work to create full leverage in the practice. So we use that framework of to goal versus through goal in order to make sure that when we get to that point, they don't get to say, hey, I'm just going to settle in now. I'm just going to settle in, because that is in defiance of the vision that they had, that I am responsible for holding them accountable to and helping them execute on that consistently. You know, at the end of the day, the goal is to have the math add up to full leverage in the practice. Sometimes how we get there gets a little muddied. You know, it's like there's 7 steps we have to go through, let's say. Perhaps we're going to do step 4 before step 2, but we have to end up doing step 2. You don't get to skip it. It doesn't stop existing somehow. So whatever path we end up to get through those 7 steps, it's sort of like in the book Relentless. Tim Grover has his 13 rules, and all of the rules have the number 1 next to them, because he says if someone were to look at this numbered 1 through 13, they think that it's a value ranking and that you have to do step number 1 and you don't have to do steps 7 through 13 because they're less valuable. That's what it's like. We're gonna get through all 7 steps, but we may have to figure out the order along the way.
I love that, and I haven't read that book, so I need to add that to my reading list. Relentless. We're going to link that up in the show notes, folks. It'll be in the description of the episode, as we do with anything that we share here on the podcast. Where does fear land in all of this? Because I find that often the reason for not taking the next step has an element of fear attached to it. And fear comes in different colors. So I'll give you some of the examples because I think some of our listeners will relate to this. But what if I don't have enough work for them and they end up costing me more than I'm bringing in? Or what if I don't have enough money to support them and their salary, and still earn the money that I want? What if I make a bad hire?
Oh,
What
and you're
if
gonna, by the way.
so there's a lot of those what ifs that
Yeah.
are really just fear rearing its ugly head.
Yeah.
How much does that play in when you're working with your clients, and
Yeah.
what are some things that you can share with our audience to help them overcome that?
So let's imagine going back to that equation that we had. Every time that we add a point to fear, that resistance grows bigger and bigger. And fear is a huge part of resistance because most resistance is internal resistance, not external resistance. So that just grows and grows and grows. Well, the truth is there's only so many first steps that we can add to the equation to overcome that really deep level of fear. Because like we can show them all the facts at the end of the day. Look, if you were able to spend 30 more hours every month focusing on generating new business for the practice, building referral relationships, reaching out to prospects, doing better follow-up for the firm, whatever. I think there's a million ways that we can fit incredible marketing and client acquisition in 30 hours. Each month. In exchange for you, that will get you the 3 extra clients required to pay for this lawyer with some profit on top of it. We know that you can do that. Like that is the science of it all. But what we have to really increase is not those first steps, but that vision component of it. And the most helpful thing to do is if it's a what if question, we do have, and this, oh man, Moshe, you and I both know this always sounds so woo-woo, but we do have to ask, what if this actually works?
Mm-hmm.
What if this works? What does life look like? What if the person is the right fit? What if they are able to handle your entire caseload, not a portion of it, but in your entire caseload? Because guess what? They're not figuring out payroll. They're not figuring out how to communicate with the bookkeeper, the marketing, the hiring, the et cetera, because they're just focused on being a lawyer and being a profit engine for you. What if that works? And then we can start increasing that vision side to overcome the resistance. But at the end of the day, all of this is a leap of faith. And I actually think, Moshe, the last time I was on your show, one of the last things I talked about was the leap of faith scenario. And I'll share it again here, which is in the third Indiana Jones movie. He comes to that point where he's going to be crossing a chasm and he hears his father's voice in his head, saying, take a leap of faith. And he takes that step out into the chasm and there's a floor there. But what happens is the camera all of a sudden pans off to the side. And what you see is it's not an invisible floor that he stepped on. You can see that it's actually a cleverly disguised rock bridge going across that's been there available to everyone all along. And that is what all of this is. It's a leap of faith into a space that we know actually exists that you are more scared of than it actually being a true problem for you.
I love that, and everything that you shared. Just put my own color on fear, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast. So I'm sure some of you longtime listeners have heard this before, but you can overcome fear with logic. But another way to overcome fear is to really dig into the fear, because our what if question is a surface level question that we really haven't played out.
Yeah.
And if you actually play out what the downside is, it's usually not so bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what if the attorney isn't self-sufficient in 90 days? Okay. So what? What will
Move
happen?
on.
Or we give them more time. We need to have a little bit more cash in the arsenal. We need to cover them for a little bit longer. Like when we start looking at the what if questions, often the answer is it's not actually as bad as we assumed. And I'm going to ask you to just take your fears and say, okay, what if that does happen? Like, what is the result? You're not dying, probably not losing your home. Like the extreme scenarios that we build up in our head are really not the things that are going to happen. And often when we look at, oh my gosh, I'm going to hire somebody, I'm going to be paying them $100,000 a year. I need to have $100,000 in the bank to support that salary. We're forgetting that you're not paying them $100,000 at once. You're paying them a salary bi-weekly, which means that maybe the first 2 weeks you're covering that completely out of whatever revenue is coming into the firm, and they're not participating in that revenue. But by 3-4 weeks in, they're already handling legal work. They're already billing some of that work. Right. So that starts to move and transition, and you're really not carrying them for that long. So we blow the fear out of proportion when the reality is it's a much smaller bite that we need to take, but we've been resistant to it. So fear kind of feeds the resistance,
Mm.
and there's a reason why you're resistant, and usually it's not the fear. It's just the fear is the thing that we use to kind of blow that resistance up.
Yep.
So really great conversation here today, Charley. I think we just started to scratch the surface. We definitely have to
I
have you
know.
back
Would love
for
to.
a repeat. But as we close out the show here, and I do every time, I just want to ask you to leave us with two things. Number one, give us one parting piece of advice or wisdom for our listeners. Number two, how can they get in touch with you? They really connected with you. They want to find out more about the mastermind you mentioned, or working with you one-on-one, or they just want to get on your list of genius. What are the next steps they can take to move forward with you?
Yeah. So the answer to that first question is don't be afraid of the work. Enjoy it, relish it. Know that the work will change over time. The work right now for you might feel like you're in the midst of grunt work in your firm. Trust that moving to higher level work, moving to the strategy work, moving to the vision work, moving to the stuff that feels more esoteric and doesn't have the same tangible to it is still work. And you have to be willing to put in that work to see the results from it. Vision doesn't happen because you woke up one morning and said, I have a vision. It was because you sat down and you carefully examined what you are capable of doing and then charted a course from that. So just do the work, whatever level that you're at, and do it over a long enough duration of time to beat all of your competitors. Then, in terms of getting in touch with me, if they go to lawfirmalchemy.com, that's the central hub to find out what is going on with Law Firm Alchemy, what's available in terms of coaching programs, courses, all of those goodies over there. And that's how you get on the list for all the awesome information. By the way, everyone should go and listen to Moshe's episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School, the podcast that I have. It was an awesome episode. I still get people who are commenting about it to this very day. And he lays out a phenomenal playbook over there. So I'll recommend that resource as well.
Awesome. And if you can give my team the link for that so that we
Will
can
do.
link that up in the show notes, we greatly appreciate it. Folks, I started this episode talking about the amazing things going on in my life. I've been sitting here drinking coffee. And for those of you not on YouTube, I'll just tell you the mug I'm using says Teenage Daughter Survivor. And my girls bought this for me. And it's kind of like a crushed look, like, it's been through the battlegrounds.
It's perfect.
And I just want to close this out with shedding one more piece of positive feed into your lives. Whatever challenge you might be up against, there is an amazing opportunity for you on the other side of it. We had a great conversation here today about really moving past the resistance and allowing all of the other inputs in that equation to overcome the resistance so that you can move forward. And whether it's in your business or in your personal life that you currently are finding yourself stuck or challenged or unable to move forward, just know that if you give in to that resistance, you are guaranteed to have the outcome of that fear happen. But if you lean into it and accept the risk, because that's why you're an entrepreneur in the first place, that's why you're a law firm owner in the first place, is because you have a risk tolerance level above and beyond somebody who works for a paycheck. If you just lean in and say, I'm going to take this risk one more time, there is something on the other side for you that when you look back, you're going to be like, wow, it's just amazing what I have been able to accomplish. So take that step, take that leap of faith, do that Indiana Jones move, and just step onto that hidden bridge, because on the other side of it, you're going to be able to look back and say, wow, I crossed that chasm. I overcame this, and look at where I am now. There's so many examples that you can find in your own life for this. I invite you to think about that, because we've all had challenges we've overcome. And at the time, it felt like it was the end of the world as we know it. At the time, it felt like this was the last breath we're going to take. And then when we look back, we're like, wow, look at everything incredible that happened. That if not for that happening, this would not have been able to happen. We all have examples of that. Lean into that, overcome whatever challenge you have today, and really just listen back to this episode. Listen to it again. This is a really good conversation around taking those next steps that are necessary for the growth of your firm. Don't get stuck in the drift. Don't get stuck in accepting just the status quo, because the status quo is not what you're meant to be. The status quo is not what you want at your eulogy. Think about what you want people to say about you, and recognize how far you are from that, because there's so much more work to be done. And today is the best day to start doing that work. Thank you, Charley, for being here. Folks, if this is your first time listening to the episode, hit the subscribe button and make sure that you get notified every time we release a new episode. And if you've been here for a while and you're really enjoying what we're putting out, you can do us a favor and go into your podcast player, leave us a rating and review. We thrive on those. We love those. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just go out, and I'm late for my next interview, but that's okay. I'm going to pull up my podcast library, go to my show, and let's see. I'm going to just read the last review left. The last review left was a 5-star review by April Roberts. April Roberts was a guest here on the podcast, a go-to for law firm owners. Moshe does such a great job of providing value for law firm owners. Everything you need to be successful, he highlights in his podcast. Highly recommend listening in. We love stuff like that. We celebrate stuff like that here at Profit with Law. And it also helps us get new listeners, people who need to hear this stuff. They listen to the show because they look at your review and say, wow, if this person enjoyed it, I will enjoy it too. Same way that you need reviews for your law firm, we need it for the podcast. So take a moment out of your day and leave us one. We'd really appreciate it. Take care, folks. We'll catch you next week. And just keep marching. Just keep moving forward. You got this.
Amen.